like a good 2-hour break where I just sat back. But for me, I think writing most memoirs are written after the healing process, or after the awareness, or after the, okay, I'm conquering this now and I'm better. Broken was not that at all. It was written before I even knew I had a problem. I thought I was fine. So I'm writing the memoir, and it was just, okay, so this is how my life was. Now, how has it made me? What am I? What are my beliefs? And I got to that point while I was writing Broken, and it just hit me. I'm not okay. Should probably speak to somebody about this. And then I went to well, no one can help me. No one is good enough. This is my lot. I might as well just live with it and accept what I am. And my husband, I've said it and I'll say it again. He was an amazing person. He was working with a therapist. He learned how far gone I was, and he took all of this to. He was advised to get a therapist to help him deal with me and what I was putting him through. So he took it to a therapist, and it really became we need to get this person help. How are we going to do it? And it's not manipulation. It was not any kind of, it was legitimately a process. You can't just walk up to somebody mentally ill and say, hey, you need therapy. It was a process, and they had more than substantial evidence to prove that I was going to resist this therapy. So if they cannot flub this. If there was a trust issue, there was a process, and he's behind me, and he's going, but you did. Yes, I did. And one of the things that I did say was, no one can help me. There is not anyone good enough to handle my issues. And I said, I thought I had to go to Boston or New York City for this. And I didn't know where to begin. That was the other thing. Where do you start? So all of this, like, hit me at the end of Broken, and I put the book down, and then I went, okay, I need help. And she said, here are the answers. You go to your family doctor, and they will get you where you need to get. And I have known my family doctor since I was 12 years old. I started my period, and I went to see this woman, and I have not seen any doctor since. So to me, she's my pediatrician. It's really, she's my doctor. And she was there with me with all the abuse, everything that had happened to me, and she had no idea. So I watched this woman. I walked in. I published *The Learned Shadow*. I signed it and gave her a copy. We are close. During my wedding, I'm going, is it appropriate to invite my doctor to my wedding? Like, we are close. And I sat there talking to her, and I finally broke down and explained everything that I had happened. And she was doctor to my father. She was doctor to my mother. She was doctor to my sister. This woman knew our family. And when I started telling her everything, the look on her face was, oh my God, I didn't know. How could I have not seen this? And you could tell she had internalized it. You could tell she was blaming herself. And she said, I didn't know. And Isaac jumped right in and said, she hit it that well. She told no one. It's not you. And I could just see the torment on her face, like she should have known. She should have seen the signs. And that's how good I had gotten at hiding it from everybody. So it was then, after Broken was written, that I started therapy. So people don't get to see the healing process in Broken. They only get to see all the mess and the chaos and literally, they see the road of awareness while I'm on that road. So when they finally get to the end of the book, they went, oh, that's how you get to awareness. And here's the beautiful part of Broken. I have taken so many people with me. I've had so many people put it down and go, I need to see a therapist. And that, yosh,
yeah,
that to me, that is just, yes, it's okay if you need a therapist. It's okay. And so to me, it's very important that I show the process, the healing. My therapist said to me, you need to keep, or she recommended a therapy journal. I'm a writer. I ran with that. And I went,
no problem.
And I'm not sure about you ladies. I was stripped of privacy. To me, it doesn't exist. And I still struggle with this one. If someone were to say, take off your clothes, I go, well, why not? And it's something, part of my brain, my therapist and my husband are going to go, no, you don't do that. But I'm not. They are. Like that, their voices are in my head saying that's not appropriate, and I'm going, well, why not? What's the problem? There is no privacy, and I think that's going to be our next battle, is teaching me what privacy is. So I will have an idea or a thought. People have said, well, did you have a problem publishing Broken and showing people? And I'm like, no, it wasn't. Yeah. I say, yeah, okay, here you go. This is what happened to me. There is no privacy because that was taken from me. So.
And see, for me, I think I hold privacy more sacred because of what I went through.
Yeah.
And I think that it's hard to open up for me. And to put, like, I was so proud of myself with the first 2 books that I published, The Hunter, or well, the first 3 actually, the first 2 series, because they were fiction, and I got some negative reviews, and I rolled with it. You know, you hear these stories about people who like have meltdowns and humiliate themselves online. I didn't have any problem with the negative reviews that I received, and then, you know, I haven't gotten any negative reviews with the Hell School series. Which, for people who haven't seen other stuff that we've done so far, is the story of my experience being stalked in high school. But with this, there were comments that were made that weren't negative. I mean, they gave me 4.3 out of 5 stars. That's not a bad rating. 3.9 out of 5 stars. That's not a bad rating. But they made comments that felt really personal. And the first one, wow. Anybody who goes and researches is going to know who said it. But that one of the people on my tour, she said that she couldn't imagine responding that way, and that she felt like she would have been stronger.
You know, I'm going to say,
and that just crushed me as an adult. And after I stopped crying and got myself back together and everything, I was able to, you know, rationalize. Okay, well, yeah, she's reading it from an adult's perspective. And as an adult, I would never react the way that I did either. But I was a 14-year-old girl who had never had a boyfriend, who had never had anybody who had any interest in her, who had been a tomboy growing up. I was never a girly girl. Guys didn't show an interest in me. And then this guy was obsessively interested and wouldn't stop. And I didn't know if my being uncomfortable was because I wasn't in tune with my sexuality. I didn't know, and other people around me were like, oh, it's no big deal, you're fine. And I listened to them instead of listening to my gut. Yeah. And that's probably one of the things that delayed my getting help.
Yes.
And then because I listened to them for so long, saying, oh, it's no big deal, oh, this is normal, oh, it's not a problem. And then when I did go to get help, I didn't push as hard as I needed to.
Yeah, that's big. That right there is a huge, I'll have to later on in this conversation go over that particular moment there, which ties into domestic violence. But I'm going to say what my therapist told me about this very topic. And it really rings true. It hits you home, and it's a beautiful line. I was, you know, and I talked about it yesterday. I was 5. I had animal pieces pulled apart and thrown at me. And I blamed myself that I failed to save the animals. I was raised with dozens of kittens dying in my hands because they would suffocate from distemper. Most cats get shots from distemper. Mine did not. And I sat there cradling dying kittens, and I blamed myself because I could not save them. And my therapist sat down with me and said, how old were you when you started watching these cats die and the animals being thrown at you? And I said, well, I was 5, 6, 7, 8. And she goes, do you realize that you stopping a cat from dying or you stopping these animals from being hurt, that is an adult position? And I went, yeah. And she goes, you were expecting a 4-year-old and a 5-year-old to behave and take the action of an adult. Would you expect that of your 8-year-old? And I have an 8-year-old right now. And when I was my Elizabeth's age, yeah, I was already trying to not be beaten. I was already holding cats when they were dying. I would never expect my 8-year-old to try and handle that. That is an adult issue. So this is going out to every one of you, to every person who's ever been abused as a child. It's easy to look from an adult back at a child going, oh, yeah, of course I should have. Of course, yeah, you're an adult now. You were an 8-year-old child doing only what an 8-year-old could. You are a 14-year-old girl doing only what a 14-year-old could.
Yeah.
And that is nobody's fault. That's not victim blaming. There is no place for victim blaming. Victim blaming is a horrible.
There are many adults too who There are many adults who are abused and stalked,
Yes.
and
Yes.
you know,
If you've never been through it, you don't know how to react. You really don't.
Yeah.
And I mean, everybody likes to think that they know how they would react. My kids and I play a game called the What If, and they are terrified by some of my answers because I've been in that situation. I know what would happen if somebody broke into my home. They would die because I'm not going to die. I already know that I'm going to be a survivor. At 14, I didn't know that. And I had to go through that process. I'd never had a reason to think like that before. I'd
Yeah.
never had my life threatened.
I remember, go ahead, I'm sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
I remember I was watching Inside Out, and I'm telling you, if you have not watched this movie, you need to see Inside Out. Phenomenal. There's this, I remember I was sitting there in the theater watching it. I cry. This movie breaks me down. I'm watching the story, and I'm a writer, so we're applying okay, so the story unfolds. This is going to be the story. This is going to be okay, we have the protagonist. The story's going to unfold. Now we need a problem. So we got this perfect life. We've got this girl. She's growing up, and I'm like, where is the problem? And I went, she's going to get raped. Yeah. Oh, wait, this is a Disney movie. But that was literally, I sat there in the theater, 11 years old. Yep, it's about time. In 2 years, she should be raped. All right, then. Oh, yeah. Disney doesn't do that, do they? So to me, that was a normal child trauma. Rape. Yep, that's right. And when it was funny, because they're like, oh, you move. She moves. She's moving. And I'm like, that's it?
That's the trauma.
Not trauma. And it is trauma. It is trauma.
Oh, yeah.
Trauma is any moment that there is something that we lose control and we associate fear or hurt with it. It is a big deal, and no one has the right to tell anybody what is or is not trauma. Devaluing emotions is not okay. But to me, with perspective, and I'm looking at that going, that's it.
Yeah.
And that was...
Well, see, and for perspective, I watched that movie with my boys after we moved for the first time across country.
Yeah.
It was their first time. I've done it several times, but I hadn't done it in a while.
How
and
was that?
both my boys bawling through the whole movie. I was like, wow, I guess the move was harder on them than they wanted to admit.
Wow, that's amazing. So you had 3 boys, and I'm going to say it, you pulled a Riley on them. You moved them cross country.
I
and
did.
Did you talk? I'm curious how they felt about the movie afterwards. What you talked about it.
They loved it, and it helped a lot. You know, my oldest has autism, and so he struggles with expressing feelings, even understanding his feelings.
Yep.
And so we were really excited to watch the movie with him to help him understand how the rest of us process things.
Yeah.
And he seemed to have the easiest time with the move. And his acting out happened months later, but then he was able to say, well, it was because when we moved, I was so caught up in, I was just shut down. And I couldn't function. And then as he started to thaw, he started having the angst and the misbehavior. And my youngest, he was upset from the moment he found out we were moving. And he expressed very clearly that he did not want to move, and he didn't care that there wasn't any work where we were, and he didn't want to go to that stupid state Utah that he knew nothing about. And he got over it a lot faster after we moved.
We moved 5 blocks, and my kids had the same reaction as yours who moved cross country.
Oh yeah, well, because their element of existence is so confined. I mean, especially when they're younger.
Yeah.
Their friends are all...
We moved when my son was 5 years old, and it was 7 years before he accepted that we had moved and that we weren't going back to the old house again.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Now, I want to tie all of this into the topic. We're talking about domestic violence, and we're actually moving is a huge topic with this because we are talking about the stability of a home, security, and what exactly that provides. And domestic violence actually takes a home away, is no different than if you're moving, and if you're moving a lot. They're very much a related topic.
And people who experience domestic violence often move a lot. See, for me, the move wasn't traumatic because the first 10 years in my life, I lived in 6 different cities, and in those 6 different cities, we lived in 4 different homes in each city. So moving, I mean, I could have been a military brat as much as we moved, but I didn't even have the excuse of my dad's in the military.
And we had one house growing up, and I was in that house. There was that house. So, and it's funny because we had the image of the stable house. We had the image of the perfect family and the dink, double income, no kid. You know, it was the American dream on the outside. And that was really, and this is something that came up with my family recently, everyone knew my stepbrother was beating me. Everyone knew. This was not hidden. And it was just, and that was just the end of it. And it was just so, okay. And Joy, I want to bring you into this for a moment, because when we talked about a domestic violence panel, you were nervous. How are you feeling now? Are you still anxious? Are you comfortable?
Oh, I mean, yeah, I just didn't think that because it's not a topic that I could speak about with experience, that I would have much to offer. However, there is elements, I wouldn't call it domestic violence, but there were elements to my 10-year marriage that, although not directly towards me, but he was violent in a way that, because my ex had 3 addictions, and if he'd give one up for a day or he was run out of one of them, he would get quite violent, and he often would slam things so hard that they would shatter, they would break, they would fall.
Oh, yeah. I'm sorry. I think I just got triggered. Yes.
Yeah. So that sort of anger, the anger when he was, out of his drug or couldn't get to the pub to get,
Well, and I want to pop in here and say that is domestic violence.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
Because you're not safe.
If you don't feel safe,
you're not safe,
no.
then it's
safe.
all applies.
So you're subject to his rages and outbreaks, and that's violence.
I'm sorry, ladies. I gotta step aside. I'm triggered. I just need to step aside for a minute.
Sweetheart, go.
That's okay.
Go, and do you want to breathe? Just breathe for a minute.
Yeah, my husband knows what to do. I just for a moment. I'll be right back.
You come right back in a minute, dear.
Yeah, so it was just because he had all these addictions, it was just it was like walking on eggshells all the time.
Absolutely.
And,
Absolutely.
My father was the same. My father, who was a sober alcoholic, still had all that, and you'll find out because you've got my book now, Charlene.
Right, yes.
It was trying to placate him and for his moods to escalate. So you just had to and when something would traumatically happen to me as a child, and he was the only one I could go to, he was the only one home, and I was more afraid of his reaction than what was happening to me. Yeah. It was always just, never knew when he was going to switch from fun daddy to this just moody like ogre, and it was very difficult. So I had that as a father figure, and then I ended up marrying someone similar.
Of course, we marry our parents.
But you know what? It wasn't a conscious decision, and he certainly didn't present himself in that way in the beginning. In the beginning, he's charming, he was lovely, full of plans and hopes, and he had this aura about him. But the more I got to know him, and the more deeply we got into the relationship, the more he revealed about himself and the truth behind who he was, and that was a scary guy. And I didn't kind of believe what would happen until I saw when he was out of his drugs or out of his booze that how deeply he could be so addicted to this that he would, all the things I saw him do to get it, it was just awful. And this will happen around me.
Is that there's a couple of things I'd like to say to that, and one is because you didn't have a safe upbringing, you wouldn't have looked for it. You looked for a replica of that same kind of. How are you doing, Angela, honey? How are you?
I'm okay. I'm grounding myself. I am here now. I've got water. I've got stuff to access my senses. I did not know I am bothered by slamming doors and glass shattering. So there's a memory literally trying to get out, and I don't remember it.
Very close.
So, yeah.
Breathing
so
in.
I'm okay now.
Good. So Joy, if I could just finish there for, so that was one thing I wanted to say. And so for you, the conscious recognition of a safe place to live is really important. The second thing is that when someone is addicted, it's not them. And I'm not making any excuses. I'm just saying the drug itself is what you're seeing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The addiction is the drug takes over on a cellular level. And so that becomes who you're living with. And that was...
Yeah, I didn't even know who he was after a time. He made no sense.
That's right.
It looked like someone I was married to, but the rubbish that would come out of his mouth, and he was like, "Who are you?" I mean, what? It just talked nonsensical, and it's like I can't even communicate with this person.
Oh no.
Let alone, placate him while he's in his moods. But when he's relaxed and he's in his state, he makes no sense. And there was no level where we could be the same. And I just didn't feel comfortable with him on any of those levels. So, but you'll read it. And you know what? I only dedicated half a chapter to my 10-year marriage. The hell of that 10 years.
I have to ask about that. I read that part, and I said something very clearly and broken when I got to my ex-husband. I said, I don't want to talk about him. It's not worth it. But I was married to him for 7 years, and I'm like, I don't feel it's worth it. And I'm having memories come up, and I just made a connection to something else, and I went, oh, 7, yeah, I need it. Okay, so that's another note I need to make. So I was wondering, did you get the same feeling with your ex when you were writing in your book? Did you get to that point where you're just like, this isn't worth mentioning? He's less than this. He doesn't deserve my book. Because
that's not what my book was about. Right. It was like that was focusing on one person, and my book was about Australian men in general, like the everyday dealing with people, with the guys out there on the street or dealing with wherever you have. It wasn't about that. I could write a whole nother book just on that marriage. Yeah, I could, but it's it's not really what the point was. The point was, just the everyday harassment and assault that like from several men, not just the one. So that was the point of that. And of course, I didn't want to relive any of what I did write about, but I thought it could do a lot of good for a lot of women. I could really be of help here if I do open up and talk about it, and that's why I did. But when you're in, and there are books about domestic violence when people are married to the one guy, and it's all about domestic violence. And I've read those books, and I love those stories because I learn so much about myself or about others, and it helps me. It's like a warm and fuzzy hugging circle.
Yeah, it is. It is. Every time I finish a memoir, I feel like I've virtually taken this person and just and I felt that way with yours.
Yeah.
There is something about a memoir.
There is, but domestic violence, I mean, I've experienced it in some kind, but I never got actually beaten by someone I was with. I've never got hit by anyone or tortured in any way, and I've read those stories, and they just make my heart just break in two, and I just feel so deeply for these people who have suffered it. So thankfully that I have escaped that, but I have had physical violence in other parts of my life, and the rapes and whatever. So I've been quite through quite a lot, but still, there's always people who've been through worse than I have.
One of the dangers of having been physically abused is we minimize the emotional abuse.
Yes.
And sometimes that can actually be far more damaging.
Exactly.
Scars last, but they are visible, and you can do therapy, and sometimes the internal scars, you don't even realize you have them.
Exactly.
And this is something I mentioned in the book club discussion I was having with Angela, or maybe it was the interview when we read Broken. when you have emotional trauma, whether that emotional trauma comes from physical or from just emotional abuse, or any combination thereof, there are physiological changes that happen. When you're afraid, your body is releasing adrenaline, and that reshapes.
It does, yes.
It reshapes your organs. It reshapes your heart. The cause of congestive heart failure is adrenaline.
She said that, and I went, I feel like I need to go to the doctor now, because I had 25 years of, okay, maybe I should see somebody about that.
And like my grandmother has congestive heart failure, which is why I know about this. I was with her and helping her out, because I have a degree in biomedical engineering, so I can talk to the doctors very easily.
Yeah.
And my grandmother doesn't think she worries about anything, but she's lived her entire life in a state of anxiety, because without even realizing that she was in a state of anxiety.
Yep. Yep, and that state creates the same adrenaline release and cortisol release as if she were conscious of her inner workings. But of course, in her generation, there was not a lot of emphasis on becoming self-reflective and self-aware.
No, I mean, she was born in 27, and she, unlike most women of her era, she went to college, and she met my grandfather, and they got married, and she became a stay-at-home mom of 8.
But she lived through the war, and the Second World War, First Wars, had tremendous oppressive psychological impact on everybody.
Yeah.
Because it was just so horrific. And so she would have been, 12, 13 when it started, 1938, 1939.
Yeah.
And that's a time when she's just going into the whole, guys and boys.
Well, and she had so my grandmother had, this is before antibiotics were developed. She had an empyema in her lungs, so she had a pocket of pus in her, and the only way that they could treat that was to cut a hole and keep that hole open so it could drain. And so she spent the first 16 years of her life almost bedridden with what we would consider obsolete medicine. And as soon as antibiotics were developed and given to her, she got better in 2 weeks.
Right.
Right. So she has, I mean, that's what I know about. There could be other things that she has that traumatized her that she just didn't want to admit.
Yeah. No, that's part of her coping, that denial. She is at that stage where she's not ready to, and I have the problem.
She is likely to never be ready, and that's okay. But it's still worth mentioning.
Yeah, and it's a cultural thing too, because generationally in her culture, God forbid, but if she had been raped or there had been domestic violence of any kind, you didn't speak about it, and therefore it didn't really exist. There wasn't a standard.
I will forever go back to this reference because it really summarizes my existence. The character who portrays my mother in Broken, that did come from a massive family of severe abuse. Foster cares for years, 1960 foster care system. That's enough. That's it right there, and that's the portion. There was rape. There was just so much, and then this person comes along and tries to parent, and I don't know if this person will ever be ready, and that's part of something I've got to learn to deal with and just accept, and okay, that's going to be some of those options. But I remember this one day I walked into a relative's house, and I heard this woman screaming upstairs, screaming, and everyone ignored it. And Elizabeth's mother figure in the book asks, why is she screaming? And her sister responds, yeah, she was raped. As if the girl screaming upstairs was a nuisance to her.
Yep.
That is how the subject is around me. That is, everybody's
That's the culture. That's exactly the culture until the recent spate, relatively recent spate of very brave people like yourselves speaking openly, like myself, speaking openly and saying, this is wrong, we're changing the standard. But no, that is exactly, people thought if you were raped, just shut your mouth, don't talk about it, you'll bring shame on the family. You're a woman, you've been raped.
Because you did something to bring it upon you.
Yeah.
Yep.
You're the one to carry the shame, and so this is huge. This is huge that we have come so far in so little time. Angela,
and unfortunately, there's a lot of places that haven't come that far yet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now there are some places where the female will be killed if she is raped and she
admits it.
Yeah. You keep your mouth shut in those cultures. It's horrible.
It's very unfortunate.
And not just in third world countries. There's still places in North America that this happens as well.
I met someone a month ago who was given a date rape drug in college and was raped. And she went to her parents about it, and her dad was going to mutilate her because she violated the family honor and was unmarriageable.
Yeah. See, and that
she's grew up in the U.S. She, is only now starting to understand that the culture her parents were coming from does not condone that, because she thought it was normal as well.
Well, and look at Elizabeth Smart. She talks about how she feels like she was now worthless and she may as well just die because she was used up and she was no longer worth anything.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
One of the things that really I went the road of dissociation. I shut everything off, and at some point, I explained this in Broken, every one of my emotions were used as a weapon against me. So I very quickly learned, don't feel, shut down jealousy, shut down anger, hatred, accept compassion. Compassion was the only one that I was allowed that I wasn't hurt with. So to me, I actually went into the state where I wanted to achieve Kalinar. And for those who don't know, Kalinar is the esteemed state by the Vulcans in Star Trek of pure and total emotionalist logic. And I thought that was the way to go. And I absolutely, I'm telling you, at one point I was there, except I am not a Vulcan, and it did not work. So it was devastating what ended up happening as a result. And one of the conversations I had with my therapist when we got into it was, emotions are stupid. And she said, emotions are not stupid. Emotions just are. Fine. And I'm still coming to terms with that one. But one of the things that she said to me was, and this is something that just really rings home to me, if you stub your toe, there are pain nerves, there are signals that send it to your brain to say, hello, your body has been damaged, you should probably do something about that. And we pay attention to it because it hurts us. Emotions are the same thing. When you feel anger, angst, hurt, fear, sadness, they are a communication that your brain, your mind, is being hurt. Hey, do something about it. And people don't. We don't know to. So we shut it down, we ignore it, we call ourselves stupid, and we push it aside. If we are getting, and this is wonderful, I think I talked to Charlene about this and Aurelia, when you are subjected now to prolonged periods of fear and sadness, that is when your brain chemistry starts to change, and that is where you really run into some problems. You are not supposed to be exposed to fear or sadness for a prolonged period of time, any more than you are supposed to be having a broken arm, and you're supposed to, if you keep feeling it, you're going to have a problem. You're going to die eventually. Emotions are the same way. It is a signal that we are ignoring, and that leads to so much mental issues. Fear and sadness are dangerous to feel over a prolonged period of time.
They're dangerous to feel in intensity in short periods of time too. I mean, that's what PTSD is. Is that not being able to fight or flee, even if it's a short period of time, even if it's a long period of time. And one of the things that they found is that everybody used to think that PTSD was just related to soldiers.
I was going to say it. You said it. Yes, soldiers. Yes.
Yeah, and or people who had been through, quote, seriously traumatic experiences like that. But what they have found is that even individuals who go through comparatively to being in a war zone for 6 months, smaller traumas that last over a longer period of time are just as likely. I ended up with PTSD from my stalking experience. Yeah. And he only stalked me 8 hours a day for 4 years
only, honey,
for
only.
school.
He
yeah, I know.
Only, me but 8 hours a day.
Yeah.
No.
And when I was home, and I mean, I remember my junior year, my brother-in-law came in to wake me up because we were getting ready to go do something. I had laid down to take a nap, and I hit him.
Oh yeah.
Because I was asleep, and my body, I was suffering from PTSD, and in my mind, I didn't know it was him coming to wake me up. He had called me twice. I didn't hear him, and when he touched me, I hit him. Mm-hmm. And I'm not a small girl. I wasn't a small girl in 11th grade, and I knocked him to the floor, and mm-hmm. I was considered a sweet girl, and he was completely shocked, and that was when I realized, hey, there's something more going on here. This isn't okay. You shouldn't wake up feeling like that.
And I do want to ask, at what point, I mean, we talk about awareness, and this is hard, getting that change of perspective so you can finally go, oh, I need help. It took me writing Broken and dumping everything that I had. And there was a lot more going on in the Broken, which I get into in Broken, and especially in my blog. And I won't go into it here. But there was a lot more going on. It took a lot more kick in the pants for me to actually get to a therapist. It wasn't just, I finished Broken, put down my pen, okay, honey, we need to go to the doctor. That did not happen. I put Broken down, and it was like 2 weeks later that I finally got to the doctors. And that part is explained on my blog. So, but that being said, I'm a mother. I have the 3 children here, and I am looking for signs. And it's not that I'm looking purposely for an excuse. I am aware, and I am conscious when I see normal versus, okay, this is a mental problem, we should get them to somebody to help them. And one of the things that I want to bring up and very strongly get into is adolescence. Now, for me, I was being beaten, so I threw a tantrum. I was being raped, so I was screaming and lashing out. And my parents went, that's normal, it's a teenage thing. No. And I took this to my therapist because I've got a 13-year-old and almost a 12-year-old. I don't know why I did that, but I'm going, okay, what does adolescence really look like? How do you know it's an adolescent tantrum versus this is something else I'm not aware of in trauma? And I took it to my therapist, and my therapist broke it down beautifully. A child is supposed to rebel. I don't want to go to bed. I'm going to sneak a book. A child is not supposed to sneak outside their bedroom and run away to go have sex with somebody. That is not adolescence. That is a problem. Mm-hmm. A child is not supposed to say, they're not supposed to lash out violently or cut themselves. They're not supposed to steal alcohol or be in trouble with the law. If the cop is on your speed dial, that is trauma. There is something else there. You've got to get them help. If they sneak a book after hours or say I hate you, that's normal. All kids hate their parents at that age. It's okay. But aside, and
not at all. My 12-year-old's still good. Shh.
12. Yeah, you just
okay.
No, it's good. No, really, this is wonderful. I told my therapist about it, and her response back was, if they are comfortable enough to say I hate you, it's because they love you.
Yeah.
If there's a fear there, like I would never tell my father at the time when I thought he hated me, I would never dare speak about it because I thought that if I did, I would risk that. And it's good. It's a good sign if they cross over, because they will. But it's really. So what I want to know is, how exactly do we educate ourselves and our children to recognize the signs and say, okay, this is something more, I should probably look into getting help for this?
That's a very good question. I think just for me personally, because I've only very recently come out with everything, and I've only really confided in one person, aside from writing the book and whoever is reading it now. And my partner is the one that actually says, yeah, I think you might be a bit more damaged than you realise. And also, not only damage from all these men in my life, but also from my family members. And it strikes the chord, and I was like, yeah, well, it's just a whole nother thing that I haven't even gone into yet. But it really takes someone else that you love and that you're close to see this in you, not in attacking you, but just maybe saying, hey, you might want to have a look at that because that doesn't seem quite right. And for in some ways that you might react to something might be, your normal response because of what you've been through, but to someone else on the outside who's close to you, saying, "Are you sure you're okay? Because you don't look okay." Just how you reacted before, Angela. It's like your husband knows how to fix
Yeah.
you, knows how to deal with you in those situations. Yeah, I mean, it takes. For me personally, it's my partner who's with
Yeah.
me all the time, so he has to deal with my certain reactions. Now
Not deal with them.
I'll
Help
give you a
you.
very very quick example of just something that happened a couple of months ago. I was at the supermarket. I was putting my goods on the conveyor belt. A gentleman was standing behind me, just started to take it upon himself to help me and touch my stuff and start helping me putting my stuff in my cart. And I completely freak and I want to turn around and I want to hit this guy. And I said, I want to yell out, back off. You are making me so nervous right now. And I felt violated. I felt so violated by him just touching my stuff, my belongings, without even asking, and that was an extension of everything that's, all the violations, from. But it all brought it all back up to the surface, and I was shaking and I was angry. I didn't though. I said, "Oh, okay, well, thanks," because I've always tried to be polite and be ladylike. So I just reacted uh, like, as a lady would. But inside, I wanted to really kill this guy. And when I met up with my partner just 5 minutes later, he says, "Are you okay?" And I said, "No." And I told him what happened. And he says, "Oh," he gave me an instruction on how to deal with that sort of thing next time. Perhaps, not lash out like I wanted to, but don't just let someone do that to you either. Just perhaps say, "That's okay. I got my own stuff. I don't need your help. That's right. Thanks very much." And just like getting them away from me, but still be polite. And I suppose if that happens again, I could try that. So he does actually give me some practical exercises to do, which I think is a great help for me because I'm still dealing with everything I'm dealing with, and it'll come out when it'll come out. So I'm actually with the best person I can be with right now. He's not a professional, but he's certainly a great common sense guy that really cares about me, and he's really good to have in my life that way. I've never had therapy or anything like that. So, yeah. And he's the one who has to shake me out of my night terrors too. I was like, "I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry." Yeah, having to deal with someone who's been through a lot is not easy for someone who hasn't been through it themselves. So, yeah, he's got his handful with me.
Well, and I can relate to that a lot. That I'm not the person who's experienced the abuse. I'm the person who knows all the people who have.
Mm-hmm.
My parents and my brother, and one of the things that I think is really important, and I think you were talking about that with your partner, is having a family that has clear caring and support. And so for my family, because my parents are survivors, we had family dinners, and it wasn't, if there was an extracurricular thing that happened to conflict, then we could miss, but it wasn't like a regular, like you never miss dinner regularly. And I think having that is really important. And when you're in a place where you're not safe, where your family is hurting you, or you don't feel like you're safe with them, I think it's important to find your family of choice. Find those people who you're not related to, but you can relate to as if they are family. to give yourself that.
Yeah, there's some things you were saying. I really appreciate what you're saying, Aurelia and Joy. I wanted to say to you, your story is a really beautiful one, and it, first of all, when you had the capacity to hold back all that emotional tsunami you were experiencing, it shows a very strong ego, grounded in your body, a very clear and present ability, and that's commendable, given what you've been through. One of the ways we can all recognize emotions that are not adult. So if you say, well, what is an adult emotion? An adult emotion is, this guy's ticking me off with taking his paws all over my stuff. You know, maybe I'll just step up to him and say, and then it's gone. But when you have a huge wave of emotion, like Angela had, or like if I get triggered or something, what happens there, that's from the past. That's the complex, that's something. So when we're looking at adolescence, it becomes trickier because adolescents experience everything in huge terms.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
So
hence the I hate you that's coming, Heidi.
My oldest already does it. He started it at like 7, so I'm familiar with that. But my 12-year-old, I'm hoping he holds out and waits.
Yeah, he'll go through too. Because I love
eventually, but can he wait until the other one's gone? No, I love them both. I do.
Yeah.
Exactly. But that idea that the adolescence is a time of extremes, so then you watch patterns, and the other side of it is not just where is it not working, but as Heidi and as Angela and as PD, with your children, and what I went through with my son and all of his friends is they love you and they talk to you.
Yes.
So whatever's going on in terms of the negatives, you get in on the positive side with them, and then you've got a real tool, you've got a craft, you've got a boat to carry you both through it, or the family through it. So I can offer that, if, you know.
Yeah. There was something I wanted to. Oh yeah, I did want to make note for people who don't know. What you saw earlier with me breaking down and crying, that's PTSD. That is what it looks like. And that wasn't an emotional, oh, I'm sad. Oh, no, that was an that is
overwhelmed,
what
can't even breathe.
Yes.
And I think
but that's not the only way.
No, it's not the only way.
I
mean, certainly what Joy experienced was also PTSD.
Yes, very much.
And then there are little things
the night terrors.
Yeah.
That's what that's when mine mostly come out in night terrors, and I have no control over it, and it's usually the night that attacks me when I'm at the most vulnerable, and I'll be yelling out, and most of the time I won't remember it, but sometimes I will, and it's usually if I get woken up out of it, I can usually then remember what it was I was screaming about, and it's always a man violating me or attacking me, always. But those little things, it can be a little thing like that, or just something that reminds me of whatever's happened, but it'll bring all that emotion with it, and it's too much for me to handle at the time, and I don't know what to do with it all. With you, Angela, you just needed a moment. You needed to collect yourself, and then you came back.
I'll tell you how I did it. And this is where the therapy really took place. Ground yourself in the moment. PTSD is when you are remembering the past so strongly that you are forgetting. You think you're there, and you need things here in the present. It's like you are confusing past with present. That's what PTSD is, and you have to ground yourself here in the present to remind yourself and your mind. You are not in the past. You are no longer being abused, beaten, raped. You are safe. You are okay now. And the best way to do that is using your senses. I've got chocolate. I have scent. I have taste going on. And I've been told to touch my
That's right.
armchairs. And it grounds me. So it's why I'm sitting here in the call. And I just noticed how strong peppermint is because it also activated my whole sinuses and my nose. I need to make sure I have peppermint on hand for those. That was really helpful. Also music. I usually have music. I literally have an Angela's PTSD playlist. And I'll hit that if I weren't on with you. I would have hit it and it would have played it through. And it's a reminder that I'm okay now. I am safe now. I am in control.
Can I ask a question? If everyone here is familiar with PTSD and its therapies, which I'm not, and I'm sure that that's what I need. How do we then ground ourselves if it's during the night, if it's night terrors and you have really no control. If someone's woken you up and you're still terrified, how do you deal with it then?
I would love for Charlene to answer this one. She's great with this.
Thank you. Joy, the thing to first remember is watch the next day, because generally you will feel better in your day life the next day. You've hit a sort of release point, and now your whole temperature is internally, your whole balance is in a better place from having had that release.
Mm-hmm.
So if you keep looking at that, what you start to do, even in your sleep, is recognize, oh, this is a night terror. The other thing I'd recommend you doing is writing it down as soon as you wake up. Because when we write things down, we get power over them.
It does. Do it. It is amazing. The therapist
Another
said
thing
write it
that
down.
helps.
It's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Another thing that helps is when you experience a trigger, learning to recognize your triggers before you go to bed. Because a lot of times you're having the night terrors because something during the day triggered your reaction, but you didn't process it. You held it in. Yeah. You didn't let it out. And then you go to bed and your brain says, okay, time to process that.
It can be that way, Heidi.
And it slams out.
It can be, but it is also the other way around.
Yeah, it can be as well.
What's fascinating to me is that when we are feeling good in our lives, and I've tracked this with many clients because I work directly with dream states at night, I watch that when they're in a good space, that's when the garbage will hit the fan.
Yeah.
Conscious says, oh, you're strong. Okay, take this little bit and get rid of it.
Here.
It's funny. You're calling them night terrors, and I grew up calling them dreams. I thought they were normal. You are not supposed to have nightmares. And that floored me. It's very, and it's funny because nightmares don't start until you're about, and please correct me if I'm inaccurate at all, Charlene. They start when you're about 3 years old. Occasionally, when you start to realize the world is larger, that mommy and daddy are within a certain distance, and then bad dreams, not nightmares, just bad dreams will start for children. And then they get grounded again. They're okay again. And then, they'll get to another point in their life, and it will span out. And actually, common and constant nightmares or night terrors is a sign, one of the signs of PTSD. That's a clue that you probably experienced.
Well, I've been having that for as long as I can remember, really, and I've never dealt with it. I've never really put a label on it, and it just seems so random. It doesn't mean that I've had a bad day that day.
Mine were random.
It's random.
Mine are random.
But what the dream world will do is bring you the material that has to be worked through.
Yes.
Sure.
Yes.
Okay.
In general, night terrors are not exactly the same as a nightmare. Night terrors are when people's eyes are open, they're talking irrationally, and you're not supposed to touch them. And this is what children often experience as they're trying to put together their world.
Yes.
And yes, Angela, generally it can be 3, but it can be earlier, 2.5 they can start, and then by about 5.5, it usually goes away. 4.5 to 5, because they've got a little more command of their bodies and of where their physicality is, and so the world is starting to make a little more sense.
I have to clarify something, Ms. Charlene. You said that you're not supposed to touch them. Did I miss?
Children.
I'm sorry? Children. I don't understand.
Children who are in a night terror, who wake up with their eyes open and are talking, and you can't make sense of them, and even if they're crying for you and you're their mother and they're saying, Mommy, 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 you're not meant to touch them. You're meant to let it go through them. Let it go through them.
Okay, my kids don't do that. I think that's good.
It's very good.
Okay.
Very good.
Oh, that's good.
As an adult, if you have someone actually in a night terror with their eyes open and they're not making sense, again, don't touch them. Let their whole psyche work it through.
Or they'll knock you to the floor.
They may knock you to the floor.
Or strangle you.
Yeah. Yes.
Any kind of, exactly. But
okay.
They feel like they're being attacked and they can't separate.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what happened to my brother-in-law.
Exactly.
He wasn't a threat, but I was in a state where anything was a threat. And when he touched me, I reacted, and I knew how I was going to save myself.
Yeah, physical contact was a trigger for me for a while. I wanted to tell you, Joy, one of the things that I went through, and this might be because of my very, very certain circumstance. I sleep with stuffed animals. I have a stuffed bear that I cling to every night. And I was actually, this is something that was on my mind last night. My cats sleep at my feet. Now, I grew up with cats covering my body. If the cats were on me, I knew I was safe. They were safe. And I could sleep. To this day, if there is not a cat next to me, I will have nightmares. And it was funny because my cookie got up and she left the room, and I had my foot, and she was at the foot of my bed, and I just put my foot up against her, and it was enough for me to relax. My husband says I kick in my sleep sometimes. Mm-hmm. I'm sorry, Isaac, really bad. And like, it's dangerous. I kick in my sleep. But a cat, I go right still. And I have one teddy bear that is actually made out of llama hair. And if I was thinking last night, if I put that on my foot, and it's enough that I think it's a cat every time I feel it, that might be enough to trigger my brain to tell me the cat is near you, you are safe, sleep well. And I don't know you well enough, Joy, to tell you if that'll work for you or not. And like I said, I think it works for me because of my experience with, if the cat wasn't in the room, it was being tortured. If the cat is with me, I and the cat are safe. So there might be something that you can cling to that tells you are safe.
Yeah, and I'm yet to explore all of that side to me. You know, I've never felt safe. I just very quickly, I have moved 80 times. That's 80, not 18, 80 times in my life. Yeah. Now, I have never had a home. The only home I have had for any length of time was for 4 or 5 years when I owned a home when I was married. But it was such an ugly experience that I couldn't wait to get out of it.
Yeah, it was a house, not a home.
Well, yes, it was with Mr. Addiction, right? So so for me, I've never had security. I've never had safety.
And you know what else
family
you
is
can't have?
certainly not people I can go to, and there's nothing. There's no belongings that I have in my life that I've held on to for any length of time. I've always had to move. I've always had to downsize. Things have come and go into my life. Pets have had to come and go in my life. I've never had children. So there's nothing in my life that's really ever been secure, that I've felt safe, that I've had of my own, that I could touch, that's tangible to me.
Permanent.
Yeah, so I don't really have any tools in that way at all.
But you have your husband. You have your partner.
My partner, he's wonderful, and he's next to me. That's the only thing I have.
And if you
one thing that's
beautiful. Go ahead, Heidi.
Yeah, one of the things that you might try, it never helped me because I'm a very non-tactile person, but one of the things that we've learned with my son who has autism is that they often experience PTSD-like symptoms because they're constantly feeling like they're under attack even when they're not. And he sleeps better, or when he has anxiety, before he ends up at the stage where Angela was. But when you start seeing the tension building up, and he's never conscious of it, if you wrap your arms around him and just hold him, he feels grounded, he feels safe, and he can let go. Now, in my case, that doesn't work at all. Don't touch me. If I'm having that moment, I need everybody to get away from me. I need everybody to leave me alone. But experimenting with those things when you're in those moments is how you'll find when you don't have a clear understanding of what the trigger is, or when there's maybe it's a vague sense of fear. But for him, it makes him feel grounded, it makes him feel safe, and it makes him and so we have a blanket that we use that's a weighted blanket.
Yep. Yeah.
And that helps him. He would not sleep through the night, even with maximum medication. He would not sleep through the night because he couldn't sleep. Yeah. And that weighted blanket has made a world of difference.
And he couldn't find his boundaries, but with that weighted blanket, he's got boundaries, and that's also what I'm talking about with the cats on you. And
I got to say it, I am hopping here. Joy, you listed security and safety, and all of you are actually right on topic with one major thing right now. It is a lack of comfort. The blanket provides comfort. You said, don't touch me. That's pushing away because there was no comfort. Joy, you were explaining that there is nothing for you. It is a lack of comfort, and I need to slow down because this is something that I just hit on with my therapist a few weeks ago. And I was pushing everything away. I'm like, look, I cry, you don't touch me. I wrote it in Broken. If you touch me, I will want to kill you. You do not touch me when I'm triggered. And my therapist said that's because your mother figure failed to provide comfort at a time that you needed it the most. You were beaten. You should have gotten comfort. You were raped. You should have gotten comfort. You were tortured. You should have got, like, everything would have been better. Okay, everything, if there was comfort, because you pull out that comfort. Suddenly there, and you see it in Inside Out at the very end. They hug her.
Mm-hmm.
Everything's okay, and that is something that I did not get. It is something Heidi did not get at a time when she was stalked. No one went up to her at some point, not enough or not what you needed to compensate, and say it's okay and hug you. And Joy, that lack of, just to touch me, keep your distance, that is a lack of comfort. And it's something that I'm okay now. I'm training myself. And here's the flip side of all this. My husband also was abused, and he also doesn't know what comfort is. So we are teaching each other comfort.
How beautiful.
And go ahead, Charlene, I'm sorry?
How beautiful.
Yeah.
It's wonderful. And it's weird because we'll hug each other and we'll be like, what is this? Is weird. And he never had a mother, and I will walk up to him and I will put his head here and I'll hug him, and he's like, what do you do? I am giving you comfort.
Good for you.
I will do this.
Good for you.
And it's weird for me. It's weird for him, and he's like, okay, I like this.
Yeah.
But I don't know what this is. And his mind, and mine as well, developed without understanding, accepting, or receiving comfort. We developed and we became what we are without it, and it's vital for growth, for health. You need it.
It's been a very, very central part of my brother's therapy, and along with the blanket stuff, my brother has a body sock.
Yep.
And he's learned to ask for it when he's feeling uncomfortable.
One of the things
we're still trying to get there. We haven't made it there
I'm
yet.
just trying to figure out, what is a body sock? I'm sorry.
It's like this stretchy material,
and
it's got a little slit like for your head, and you can you step in it and you pull it, and then you look kind of like he looks like a blue mummy sort of.
Yeah.
It's a sleeping bag, yeah.
Oh, but it's kind of,
but it's much tighter.
Yeah, and
it puts that pressure that they need to feel secure.
It's very comforting. One of the things that is just absolutely, and I lost my train of thought, and it was really, really important. I thought about the blankets, and I'm like, oh yeah. Go ahead, Charlene.
About a cat that came into our care from my husband's mother who passed away, and this cat had never been cuddled. I've never met a cat like this. She would just run. She wouldn't have anything. So I got a brush, and I just stood by the couch, and she would go under the brush. I'd move the brush so that she had to go under the brush. She'd look back at me like, what was that? After a couple of weeks, she started coming back to go under the brush again to get the sensation. And I said to my husband, we're growing her brain differently. She's growing receptors for pleasure. She's never had And so when you were talking, Angela, I was thinking about this same thing. Eventually what happens is now she will seek comfort. She'll come and want to get scratched. But she has a point where it hurts her.
Yes.
Because she doesn't have a whole lot of that, and it goes into pain. So we've learned to back off. We just...
Yes. Ultra sensitive. No, very sensitive. It's like a blind man seeing for the first time. It hurts. And I remember now, there was a moment when I was about 15, 14, and I think this made it into Broken. I wanted to scrub the skin off my body.
I remember that. You did.
And I took it to my therapist a few weeks ago, and actually this came out with comfort. And she said to me, that's a form of self-mutilation. And I'm like, I didn't understand it. I still don't. I'm still struggling. That's something for her and I. But I wanted to rip the skin off my body and just scrub it. I could not get clean. That is a lack of comfort. And she said, yes, absolutely.
Something else, which is that because I've worked with cutting in kids.
Oh, yes.
That mutilation is actually an attempt to get the dopamine and the serotonin in balance. It's a medication. So what I do with one kid I had living with me for a while who had carved words in her legs, I took her horseback riding. I said to her, you want pain? I will show you pain. I will get you on the back of a horse, and I'll tell you, for 3 days, she was like, oh, yeah, that really hurts.
But it's good pain.
Brought serotonin and dopamine into balance.
Yeah.
Gradually through that and through a number of other exercises, I taught her how to turn to different exercises, like exercise.
That's phenomenal. My daughter fights herself, and this is why she's in therapy.
That's why she's doing it. She's doing it to get the brain, because we've forgotten how to let the kids learn how to feel good by running around a field or by...
She needs to go run.
She needs physical.
Or, yeah, it doesn't have to be running. It can just be physical activities, because I hate running, but I love working out.
No, she's a bookworm. She will just sit there and let her body fall apart while she nurtures that brain.
Make her read on a treadmill.
That's knowing that, Charlene, seriously, I can, when I put her in therapy, one of the things that came back was, is she cutting yet? And I'm like, not yet. We are watching closely.
Yeah. She needs dopamine, and the dopamine comes from physical. I wouldn't suggest reading on the treadmill, although I agree with what you're saying. I'd say get her onto some kind of exercise that she that will get her moving. And once she does that and it starts to hurt her muscles a little bit, she'll come to a natural balance.
That's wonderful. Charlene, you have no idea. I love you. Oh, thank you for that.
Look what you do for people. So if I can offer something back, I'm so happy.
That is gold information. But one of the things was, my therapist explained that there was a massive imbalance. I had all this backlog, this horror, and I lacked comfort. And now I have a deficit, a debt.
That's right.
And I've got a lot to make up for. And after the training, after we're like, okay, like one of the things that I said just a moment ago when I said I need to go, my husband knows what to do. He hugged me.
That's it.
That's it. That's all he did. He hugged me.
But it worked.
I needed comfort. Yeah, it did. It did. He hugged me. I calmed right down. I'm like, okay, and I knew what to do. The rest was up to me. Access my brain, my senses. Remind myself that I'm here, that the past is over, that I'm okay now, because I am safe, and no one's going to hurt me again. Because I won't let them.
That's right.
And that is healing. That really is the core of recovery. And saying, you know what, there was a period of I feel scared. I do feel vulnerable. I feel like I can be hurt again, and I don't feel like I have that control. And now I'm on this side of it going, I will never let anyone hurt me again.
And it's the difference between a victim and a survivor.
Yeah, and I'm gonna pull, because it's such a wonderful reference. Morgan Jones from Walking Dead. You see PTSD. There is an episode where you see what it looks like, and he picks up that I won't let you kill me. I'm gonna kill you. I won't let you. That is the core of really recovery. It's, you know what, you can't, because I'm not gonna let you.
That's right.
And there is such empowerment in that, and that's where I'm almost at now. Where it was wonderful. A couple days ago, I was just sitting here. Now, I mean, this is new. 2 days ago, I was going, I won't let them.
That's right.
That was powerful. I'm actually going to do an article here after the convention called "I Won't Let Them."
That's right.
And that's what it is. It's a realization of I've got this power now, so no one can hurt me again. And suddenly I can walk into the store, and it's okay. Suddenly I can drop my guard because I am in control. I'm not going to be raped again.
Nope.
Listen, lovely ladies, I have had a wonderful time talking with you guys, but I have got to run. And unfortunately, we're past our time. But thank you guys so much for having me here.
Heidi, as always, a pleasure. A pleasure.
Me too.
Look forward to
Take care.
Goodbye, Heidi.
Bye.
Bye. And